Mary, your mic's not hot.
Josie, can you hear us?
And we're gonna get feedback.
You just turn your volume down or something?
If I turn it off, she's not hearing us. It's all from through the mic.
There we go. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
And you can hear us?
Yes, I can now. Thank you.
Okay. Working with the technology here. Thank you for joining us. I think we're good to go.
Okay. Call to order the work session on Monday, June 9th at 5:30 PM. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge to the flag, of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please, Kate.
Yes, Councilmember Fawnin? Here. Himmelbauer?
Here.
Robinson?
Here.
Udvig?
Here.
Mayor Vogel?
Here. On to. So where do we want to start for the Charter Commission? You want to go, Kate?
Yeah, Mayor Council, I can start. Tonight, we're gonna continue the discussion regarding the changes to both the mayor's term as well as the charter overall. With us tonight is Josie with the League of Minnesota Cities. She is one of their staff attorneys. As seen in your packet, there are several items that were previously discussed with both the charter and council, with a few pieces that have been clarified and some of the conversation. Tonight, the goal is really to answer the questions and determine our path forward. So the decisions tonight will allow staff to really move forward with an education piece if we decide to move both the charter question or the mayoral term to a ballot. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but really our expert here is Josie, and we can work through the process and see what questions we have and how to move forward.
Floor is yours, Josie.
Hi, well, thank you so much for having me tonight. So my role at the League, I'm a staff attorney. I'm able to provide general information and resources. And then as part of our charter assistance program, that includes information and resources specific to any questions you have about charter cities. And, I'm here to answer any questions you might have about, I heard you're potentially switching from being a charter city to a statutory city. So happy to answer any of your questions that came up. I provided a lot of information via email to Kate previously. So any other questions you might have, I'm happy to answer.
Do we want to go or?
I'll let someone else start.
I'll go first, Mayor.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I'd like to just address just the mayor's term portion. Or we want to talk about charter first?
Mayor,
Oh.
Council, you can take it as any direction you want.
The mayor term length, I'm all for 4 years. I think it's equitable for the city as well as the individuals who take the time to knock on doors and talk to people, and is what you're supposed to do when you run for an office. But I don't have a problem at all with the 4-year term. I think it's a benefit to the council and to the public. That's it.
Sarah?
I concur with Kevin. I don't think it's an issue. Again, it just needs to be on the ballot so people can, and we'll do a better job of educating people about what the question is and why this time around. I think that's the biggest concern I have, is that we make sure that we're letting people know and understand the question, because I would guess that probably of everybody in this room, I'm probably the only one who looks at a sample ballot before they go.
No, I do.
Not a lot of people do then. And if they don't, they get there and there's a question, and a lot of times they just skip it because they don't have any information and they'd rather skip it than answer it wrong.
I agree with Kevin that and Sarah too, I personally think it's very inconsequential to go from a 2-year to a 4-year as far as asking the public. And I think it's a pretty simple question. I get what you're saying. If people aren't prepared, I think it's a pretty simple question, but didn't we go down this road one time and they answered no? So if they don't answer, that's not a no, that's just a no response. It's not like it,
Good question.
It depends, because sometimes on a ballot, if you don't answer, I mean, it does, because if 5 of us go in and only 2 of us answer that question, then that's your answer. So the more people who don't answer it, the less clear you are on how people feel.
Well, it's on them though too.
It is, you're correct,
Mhm.
but a lot
But
of
then
times if people
then it's a
don't
no for
know
us.
that it's on there ahead of time,
Yeah.
which I think,
That's a question for Josie though too, so if that was on the ballot. And biggest issue I think with the questions come is the way they're worded sometimes when they're from the state. That can be confusing. I think if you ask it in the right way, just straightforward, I don't think it'll be an issue. You know, should the mayor term be 2 years or 4 years, or would you have, whatever, are you in favor of changing it to 4 years instead of 2 years? Yes or no, that's pretty straightforward.
mhm.
But if somebody doesn't answer that, does that count as a no, given that they voted, but they didn't vote yes for it, and on something like that,
Yeah, we'd have to get that squared away.
Josie?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can look into it and see what I
Okay.
can find.
Okay. Are you done there?
Oh, well, I just want to say too, thank you. I think that like what Kevin said, that if, the time that it takes to knock on doors and do your campaign and everything, that I think a 4-year term makes more sense for the mayor because it makes sense for the 4 of us. And I don't know how many other cities have 2-year terms for mayors and 4-year terms for mayors. I think 4 years is not unusual. So I think that I'd like to think that we'd have pretty good luck in convincing the public to do that. But I just want to make sure I understand, if we all voted yes to changing it and all of the charter members voted yes for changing it, then does it have to go to a vote? And I understand that some of the council people think it's really important for it to go to a vote. So is that correct? That if all the charter members vote to change it and all the council people vote to change it, then it doesn't go on the ballot?
Mayor and council, that's correct. However, if it was petitioned, it would then go back to the ballot. So if all of our charter and all of our council voted yes, and we skipped the ballot, the residents would have the right to petition to still put it on the ballot.
Okay.
And both representatives from both parties have requested it on the ballot.
Yeah, I think it's important for it to be on the ballot. I think, I personally don't have an issue with it. Obviously, a lot of people say it's good. The only other beef I have is I want it to be on a presidential year because nobody shows up for the off-year elections. And I think that that's very important for that seat.
That makes sense.
So unfortunately, you might have to campaign 2 more times.
That does make sense to me, that if we're gonna put it on the ballot, it needs to be in the right timeframe, to get the most number of voters. That makes sense to me. But I feel like there's so many other decisions that we or previous council has made that are a lot bigger to me. I'll just use this building and the police station as an example. We spent a lot of money there and we didn't put that to a vote. We didn't ask the public to do that. They voted us in, or the previous council, it wasn't me here, but they voted the council in to vote on their behalf on certain things. And so for me, if I look at spending however, between the 2 buildings, however many millions of dollars that was spent, this little issue of 2 years to 4 years is very small in my mind. So, But everybody can vote the way that they want to here on this council and at the charter, but to me, it's a really small issue. That's just how I'm looking at it. We make so much bigger decisions. I bet you if you asked all the people in St. Francis, I bet you most of them wouldn't even know if the mayor's term currently is 2 years or 4 years. I bet they wouldn't even know. And so it's just, it's not like we're saying, hey, let's make the mayor term 10 years, or something really,
I think there's
Crazy.
two ways to look at that argument too. I think so not disagreeing that the public would be nice to be involved in some of those decisions like the buildings and whatnot. But I think too, as we've seen, nobody wants anything changed in this town is the feeling I get. And this is just from obviously, when we talk with the rural people, we talk to the city people. Nobody wants anything in their backyard, which, that's their right to feel that way. But I think too, when you're talking about, they voted us in to make these decisions. That's true. And that's an argument, in my opinion, to say that should be on the ballot for them to make that decision to say, do I want this person to represent me for 4 years or 2 years? So, or you could say, they voted us in to make that decision and we don't need to ask them. But if you're talking transparency, again, it almost has to go to the ballot. But my only beef with it, again, is just please make it on a presidential.
get the
year.
timing right.
The presidential year
Get
is
the timing
important too.
I understand that.
I'm just gonna go along. I agree with a lot of Amy's points. And I gotta say up front for the public, anybody who's watching, it doesn't affect my 2-year term, so it doesn't extend anything there. But I mean, I've just sensed the majority wants it on the ballot. I'm okay with that. And I think we target for a presidential year. I recognize that we're way in front of the horse there, but I think that's okay. So I don't know. I think we have kind of a consensus on trying to go to a 4-year. And when would that be this?
So 2028, and Mayor, I don't know if you wanna, so Gary
Yeah.
showed up as a member of our charter, so if you wanna.
Any input you want to contribute, Gary?
Well, I think pretty much what you said so far is what we discussed at the charter meeting also. But everybody pretty much I felt that they wanted it on the ballot.
Like I say, I think we're all okay with that. I agree with a lot of Amy's points, but I'm okay putting it to the ballot and we'll target for the
2028.
2028 year to make that change. So
So would we need, in the next council meeting, an official vote to do that? And the charter would need to meet again to officially vote to do that? Or what would the timing on that be?
Look, Mayor and Council, we have a lot of steps from here to there, so it wouldn't be on the next meeting. But staff will start working on all of that because we'll have to design a question, but we are way ahead of it, so we'll lay out the plan and go.
I guess
We would have our annual charter meeting again before.
all of this would start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that's where I was going. If the charter should meet again before their next meeting in January.
And then Mayor and Council, that's possible, but we'll get that time frame laid out.
Okay.
I think that kind of settles that one. On to the charter commission itself. Gary, you want to go first?
Want to say anything?
Talk about whether we,
Well, yeah, I'm just kind of here to learn about it,
Yep.
but.
yep,
But one thing we've had problems with ever since I've been on it, is getting people to fill the vacancies, so. There's not a lot of interest in it, so maybe the statutory route would be the way to go.
Yeah, for me, I personally think statutory is not necessarily better, but easier to deal with. It's a matter of opinion of whether or not it's better, right? Because you can be more restrictive than the state, but you can't be more lenient necessarily. So you have to follow statutes anyway. I kind of lean towards less government's better. And that's kind of where I feel that way. I mean, some of the restrictions that are in the charter, I think do kind of make sense. I know when Rob got voted in, he wanted to still serve on the fire department. You can't do that and be a council member because you're an employee of the city. So I understand that being the boss of your boss is a big conflict when it comes to some of that stuff. But other than that, I don't know what would really be affected by rid of it, other than I mean, I've read the points here, that were provided, but to me, I think it's just less restrictive, less stuff to jump through, probably need less legal, spend less money on legal when you're coming to clarity on the charter, things like that, to where it would benefit us more to dissolve it. But that's my opinion.
That's kind of a question I had. Josie, a real quick question for you. Joe just kind of alluded to it or whatever, or just said it. In general, everything statutory A city, all the rules and regulations pretty much apply to a charter city. Is that correct?
Generally, so there's two, I guess you'd say codes. There's chapter 412, which applies to statutory cities, and then there's chapter 410, which applies to charter cities. Charter cities are governed by chapter 410, and then of course the city charter. It's where you have issues where maybe the law is, or the charter is silent onto something, you'd look towards the statutory provisions and for statutory cities to figure out, what to do for a specific situation. So it's a little more nuanced. And then of course there are areas where state law might preempt a charter provision, for example.
But there's no places where charter would preempt statutory.
No, unless the only thing I'm thinking of is, maybe there might be certain things that a charter city can do, given its just ability to regulate its kind of general welfare clause or police powers that maybe isn't provided in statute elsewhere.
Fire away if you got questions, guys.
I basically what I just heard is that if, like you said, there's more, you can do more with your police power, so to speak, with a charter. So you can do more, but you can't do less than what the state allows. If that makes sense for the most part. I'm just confused on what's the biggest benefit, I guess, to being a charter? What's the number one benefit that says we really want to be a charter city? Let's do it. I mean, do you have an example of that, or?
Yeah, I could speak generally to that. I think charters, the major kind of benefit to charter cities is that they can really tailor the charters to fit the unique needs of the city. And so, for example, there's things you can do in charter cities that you can't in statutory cities, like referendum initiative and recall. Also election by wards is another thing that you can do in charter cities that you can't in statutory cities. So there's things like that charter cities could do that allow them to kind of tailor how the city government works based on kind of the unique needs of the community and what input residents have in government affairs at the city level.
Thank you.
Does that mean it puts more power into the council's hands than it would normally? When you say what are the city's needs, you determine city needs, you shape them, and then you act on them. I don't understand the difference between the charter side and the statutory side. I mean, you're here for the public good overall. I'd like to go back a little farther. Why did we become a charter city in the first place back in the day? Gary, do you know when we did that, or St. Francis did that?
I don't recall if there was some dispute with the council at the time. Is that why it came into effect, or I don't know.
So it might have been a reflex of some sort, and it just had, and citizens said, by golly, pitchforks and torches, let's do this.
Yeah. I don't recall. I wasn't on from the beginning, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, I think it's concerning to me that, like Gary said, nobody wants to come to the meetings or fill a spot. And two, if you want a spot, you can write a letter to an arbitrary judge who doesn't know you from Adam. I don't know if they do a background check or whatever. And then you could get a seat on the charter, which has some authority over the council and how the city is steered. So I don't agree with that concept of it. If it hasn't done us that much good and we can't get participation, we're lucky to have participation at our meetings, let alone, and it's an important thing, well, what seems to be an important thing as a charter commission. I don't see why we'd want to stay a charter. And we still have to follow guidelines of what the state lays forward, you know, big brother, big sister, whatever they say, we still have, you know, there's guardrails for us. I don't know why we would want to stay at charter.
Well,
Yeah.
I think to change anything in the charter, you have to have a unanimous vote by the council. Well, so it's basically one person does it and you can't. If you know, one person disagrees, you're not gonna change anything either, so. Tighter guardrails on that, yeah.
Yeah,
Mayor and council, yeah, to make changes on your charter documents, if you don't have a unanimous vote, it does go to a ballot.
Well, that's a.
Yeah.
So you can still change, it just goes to a ballot.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm assuming, did everybody, because I think there was 3 or maybe 4 of us that our terms all expired at the same time. Did everybody re-up? Do we know?
Mayor and council, I think we still have a vacancy.
Because I know there's one vacancy, but the 4 because all 4 of us, our terms expired on like March 31st or something. Did everybody?
Did you renew?
I did, yeah. Already got my stuff back and did my oath and all that fun stuff. You did too? Do you know if Steve did? And Malcolm was the other one, right? So, I
I'm
mean,
gonna guess
I'm-
Montgomery did it.
I'm guessing they did, but if they didn't, that would, that
would
would
make a
leave us
difference
with more.
too.
And that is concerning because, I mean, all of them are a little bit older and maybe don't want to do this forever. And that's gonna be 3 vacancies all at once. If they, potentially it could be. And how do you run a charter with just 3 of,
It's not a quorum.
No, right. I'm
There's
saying.
like 7 or something.
I think there's
There's
7
7,
spots
yeah.
total.
So
And
right
Sarah
now,
and I are on.
yeah, we're on it and, I'm on it till 2029 again, but again, that vacancy has been there a long time. A very long time.
Well, and when we did meet about it in the charter meeting, I think that I don't want to speak for Malcolm, but I think he had a different take on it than you did, Gary, that, I think he was like, no, we're gonna be here. We want to be here. So I don't want to speak for him, but my feeling in the room was, it was a little, both perspectives were there, for sure. And I personally, I've heard that before where, well, it's really hard to fill these spots. And I just don't know that that's a reason to say, oh, let's not do it anymore just because we can't find people to fill the spots. I just have a hard time. I have a hard time with that. But I understand what you're saying, Kevin, that it seems odd that just anybody who applies basically is just on there and they're making, decisions, could potentially make decisions for our city and, kind of a bit above the council in some cases. And I know that seems odd to me too. But I just like having, I don't know how many times the council has had to go to the charter to like, hey, help us figure this out. I'll just use the case of Rob because I know we go to them for that. I don't know how many times that has happened, but I personally like having another committee there that can help us interpret things when it's needed. And we only meet once a year, usually, of course, if something comes up. But I personally
Do you
like.
know offhand, off your question?
No, I don't.
Do you know offhand when because I've been on it for quite a while and I've had no interaction with, maybe even how long it's been since we've never had.
Well, there was a change that needed to take place because the wording wasn't there, something with the.
I don't
Mayor
think.
and council, correct. So back in, I want to say 2018, I think Barb Pearl brought some language changes.
Yeah, very.
But in the 10 years I've been with the city, we haven't gotten complaints directed towards the charter to correct anything. We haven't gotten resident requests. Usually our
Great.
meetings are fairly quick. We look at legislative changes.
Back when Barb Held was here, we had an issue when Steve Feldman first was elected. And after the election took place and he won, then one of the council members dropped out or resigned, and they voted to put Jerry Tveit back in,
Hmm.
the old mayor, to serve beside the new mayor, and that didn't sit very well with Mayor Feldman, so.
And he was just there for.
We didn't change
6 months.
anything, but it was a discussion.
But the council voted on that, just like they did when I took over for Steve. That wasn't a
Yeah,
charter.
we didn't, yeah, we didn't change it, but
But he went to the charter for clarification or?
Yeah,
yeah, I think he
Okay.
potentially wanted it, he wanted to change it to that the incoming council got to choose because
Yeah,
that's
right.
who was serving.
Mm.
And that's-
I remember
They have
that.
to
It
live with
was-
them.
Oh, I do remember that. The timing was very,
Yeah.
Like, it was right
McClish
before the
stepped down,
election.
like right before
yep, and
So
it had
then
the
it-
45 days and all that. I do remember that.
the whole conspiracy theory. on
Mayor,
that one.
council, and I'll refer to Josie, but I do believe the council cannot also be a staff member. It's the same for statutory pay. So that
So
is,
that-
I don't believe that's unique to our charter. That is state law, no matter your city makeup.
That's not, that's the only.
Josie's nodding yes, so.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yep, you're right. There are a whole series of conflict of interest laws that govern both contractual and non-contractual situations, but also employment full-time and part-time for cities.
I'm willing to bet too, most of the residents don't know that we're a charter. They don't,
Mm-mm.
I
Probably not,
mean,
no.
most people sadly don't pay attention.
Mm-mm.
There's a lot that goes on in the city until they're mad at something.
Till you cut down a tree.
Well, and
remember
if,
that.
if we think the question of should we go from 2 years to 4 years to mayor, maybe hard to get that past, this question would be really hard for, you know, for the residents to vote on accurately, because it, just like you said, most people probably don't even know we are a charter city and, or what that is. So that seems,
There's a big education piece
Yeah.
there, but again, it's the same thing. I mean, a lot of people apparently don't get their mail. The city of St. Francis either, so you can mail something directly to their house and a lot of people don't see it for whatever reason it is, or they glance at it and throw it away. Oh, it's from the city, I don't care, whatever the case is.
Mhm.
That's where I think the education is gonna be tough on staff, because how do we really educate people? I mean, we could try, but, and that's the best you can do is try, but.
I think it's worth a try, and my reasons,
I think the mayor one, that's pretty easy and it's straightforward, and then it's just, they decide on whether or not, I mean. I know Steve loved the 2 years because he felt like you could get a majority change if you were really not
Mhm.
happy with the council. And I understand that reasoning, you know, but I think too, it's just how people feel. Do I wanna have that power of the ballot every 2 years, or can I live with a 4-year, you know, like everybody else? Or maybe they'll think they won't have to show up to the polls again for 4 years. I don't know.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know what
Nobody
they-
goes to the
people
midterms,
think.
unfortunately.
back to your fourth year thing though, real quick. I mean, for somebody, I would say relatively brand new, like myself into it. If you're just running for council or mayor for the first time, I don't care who you are, it's gonna take you
Oh,
6
yeah.
months to a year to develop the relationships and to
Yep.
start understanding what's going on.
100%.
And then you're right
It's a
back
lot.
into running again. And I just
Well-
don't think that's productive. I don't
Yes
think
and
it's,
I
no.
agree.
It depends on how mad you are when you get mad, because I know me and Steve sat in the audience for 2 years and started talking to the staff 2 years before our
Right,
election,
yeah,
but
we all did. Oh, I
the
think
wastewater got
we
us
will.
going.
Yeah.
one question I thought of, if we were a statutory city now, would this mayor term be even coming up, or would that be already
Oh, that's a good question.
in that statutory thing?
Did you hear that, Josie?
Yeah, could you clarify your question, please?
If we were a statutory city right now, would this mayor question even come up? Or would that already be in the statutory?
Well, there is a statute. I can't remember the exact provision, but statutory cities can also, it's kind of determined by city ordinance, but they can essentially amend their ordinance to change from a 2-year to a 4-year term. So it's also a capability that statutory cities have, and it's done by amending city ordinance.
So that would not be a ballot question.
20507.
Joe found it, 20507.
So I just want to rephrase that. So if we switched from a charter city to a statutory city, then we could just by ordinance change the mayoral term without having to go to a vote. Well, but people like it to want it to go to a vote, so.
Well, both of these would have to be on. a
Yeah.
ballot, I think, right? Well, I guess you could, I don't know, we could probably put anything on a ballot that you want, can't you?
Mayor, council, you can put a lot on a ballot. And that is correct. So a lot of our charter language, and a big piece of this is not only getting it to the ballot, but if the charter, if we have a positive vote to dismantle the charter, a lot of those pieces have to be moved into our ordinance. So there's a very big process where, you know, we would want to be very prepared to then do our 2 readings and our 30 days so we can move these pieces. But yes, we have multiple people that want it on the ballot, so at that direction.
I just think, I think we should look at the statutory and it's for all the reasons you guys said, but I number one is I think 99% of the people don't know that we are a charter. They don't know anything about a charter. They don't want to know anything about a charter. Number two is as we stated, you can't fill it. And number three is even if you could fill it with citizens, it's got to be a citizen who really wants to dig in and know things. It's not just a matter of filling a role. You got to find a citizen who's really passionate and wants to know and do something. And you're meeting once a year.
For
I
15 minutes
think-
most of the time, our meetings
Right,
aren't
so
real
people-
long.
People think
Oh.
that must take a lot more time, you know, and it doesn't.
Well, there's a few people I think we try to recruit too to get on it. When
Mhm.
I know when Steve got on it, Feldman, and you tell them it meets like once a year, and that is still too much for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, they don't want to commit to anything. It's unfortunate.
Especially they don't want to commit to something they don't understand. And I mean, I'm being frank and honest here. I mean, up until
Yeah.
the last 4 or 5 months, I didn't know anything about the charter. Now I've done some digging into it and I feel somewhat informed about it, but I'm still feeling,
Well, yeah, that's what keeps people out of government in general is the fear of sitting here and whether you don't know or you feel like you can't learn certain things. I mean, there's a time in my life I was not mechanical, whatever. I worked at a grocery store. You know, I got sent to college to do HVAC and I was like, let's see how this goes. Turns out I could do it, you know, but you gotta put some effort in and just people don't feel like they have the time to do it. Again, until they're mad and they show up in force and that's, I mean, the same thing that got me here. So I totally understand that.
so in general, forgive me, Kate, I mean, I know you did some of the background on this before. Let's just say tonight we come to a consensus that we want to switch to a statutory A. Then Charter Commission has to have a vote as well. Is that correct? Or
So Mayor Hubble, since it's a work session and we don't have any formalities. Basically, I would go back and I would work with Josie and I would work with Dave Shops and we would create a timeline and those steps and we would have to get the formal approval. What we would need to know though for sure is which election are we targeting this one to? Would you want to go after 26 or would you want to go after 28? If we're going after 28, I would recommend starting that education piece as early as possible. We would hit newsletters, we would hit events. And that's why I wanted to know tonight is, are we going to 26? Because I would be after the 19th. So I think we have this time and those approvals and those next steps would come, but I would definitely be working with those in regards to getting all of that lined up. We're gonna have to get resolutions in place. We'll have this all meetings. Have quite a few steps to start with.
That's kind of something I thought of too, is if we say tried to rush that to, not necessarily rush it, but if we try to put it on the 26th election, we get rid of the charter, now we have to deal with the mayoral situation, whether it's on the ballot, whether it's not on the ballot, we have the statute here that says you can change it, you basically have to talk to the county and tell them immediately once it's changed. But is it easier to do them both at the same time, and then you have time to educate people? Or if we do this first, does that kind of muddy the waters for the next thing too?
Yeah, which one to do first and.
Or if you just do them at the same time, you did them at the same time, no problem.
I think it's better transparency if we did them both at the same time.
too.
Doesn't look like the shell game, you know?
Right.
Right. So I lean towards the same time and probably I would shoot for 28th and just because of the.
I have a question for Gary. Of the time you've been on here and say you had a full house, a full table when you did these, have you felt the charter's been beneficial? And then the input that you had at those meetings for however many years you've been doing it? Or do you think we're on the right path by dissolving it because it's kind of a tattered mess?
Well, yeah, I think, the discussion on the charter has been beneficial, but again, meeting once a year, that's a long period of time. To even remember what took place at the last meeting,
Exactly.
it just doesn't, it doesn't flow well. It doesn't seem like,
Do you recall, how long have you served on the charter?
geez, I think, what are they, 5-year terms? This might be my 4th one.
Mm.
So close to 20 years.
You've been
Yeah.
on almost 20 years. Have you ever had like, other than Steve's situation, that I do remember him wanting to change a few of those things? Has there been like a reason to call an extra charter meeting that you guys have, that you recall? Or a lot of them, or, I mean, it's pretty seldom.
No, we've never had. There might have been a question or something that maybe we met twice or something, but yeah, nothing major.
I don't think it hurts to keep it intact until.
Yeah.
Not the next election, not midterms, but the next presidential election. So. I think for transparency and all that, you get the education, you start doing all that, you keep it all together. I think it makes it easier for everybody to, at least the attempt to educate
Right,
people.
yeah.
So do we have a consensus to pursue changing to a statutory A in 2028?
I agree.
I agree.
I'm a hard no on that.
Amy's no, Joe,
I mean, yeah.
so he puts 4-1 informal vote here.
Sure. So Mayor and Council, before we let Josie go, any other questions regarding this process or?
I think we're gonna learn a whole lot more in
I
the
think
upcoming.
we all
I believe we'll meet her
Okay,
again.
well, thank you, Josie, for your time.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
We'll be in touch.
Yeah, thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
I was like smiling at her like she could see us. She couldn't see us, could she?
I think she can. I think she's watching the
Oh,
yeah.
feed.
Oh, but
Yeah.
not like right.
Right.
I was like, I'm like, okay, like, wait. I got nervous for a second.
On to the liquor store, Joel.
Yeah, so I've never done this before.
Just talk to
In
us.
this format.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you for coming, Gary.
I'm here tonight to request the addition of a full-time employee, an existing employee, Tyler Lauer. Been with us for almost 3 years now. He's working close to 30 hours a week. And with Christie leaving back in March, the hours are there for him to go full-time, and the staff that are still there would still have the hours that they're currently working. The biggest gain from us moving him to full-time would be that he's already a solid employee. He's one of the few that's kind of jumped on board with me jumping in, and he's a yes man. He does the things I ask him to do, and he's just a very productive and younger employee that I'd like to see stick around for a long time.
Would like to start.
I'll start. How many full-time employees do you have now?
3.
This would be number 4. And that would leave you with 1 part-timer then? 4 part-timers. All right, what was Kyler before he came to you? What was his occupation?
I'm fairly sure. He'd already been there for 1.5 years when I started.
Oh, yeah. You think he's been used at this point or previous?
I do.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of potential. I think he's a good kid. He's got a solid head on his shoulders. Most of the customers on a first name basis. He knows the store pretty well too.
Sure.
It's even potentially being a manager at some point. That's not the purpose of this promotion. This is just more to have somebody that can work the hours that are needed to work, rather than hiring another new employee and training in another new employee.
Otherwise, you'd be at 3 full-timers and then 5 part-timers then.
Yeah.
From his salary, it says, shows the budget impact, would hourly, what would that give him, a substantial raise, or is this a promotion for him more or less, other than the full-time hours?
I'm not entirely sure on the wage structure. I do believe he would be at a different tier. His main need for it is that he needs benefits. So
That was my next
if
question.
Don't give him the full-time position, he may even.
Okay. And you feel that the investment's there, if he goes into full-time, he's probably gonna hang around for, well, nothing's ever forever, but
Never forever.
2 to 5 years at least. Yeah,
I do think that he'd be a valuable part of our team and that he would step up even more.
is he a family person? Do you have a family
He lives with his mother and younger sibling.
here in the city?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. That's all I have, thank you.
No, I've seen Tyler there several times. He does know his stuff. He's very good with customers. I feel he is. I think he would be a good employee. I think it would be beneficial to us to hire him on. 'Cause
Amy?
I don't know Kyler, but, if you switch from 3 full-time, you currently have 3 full-time people and 5 part-time people.
Mhm.
3.
4 for 10.
He's one of the part-time, so I believe he's
So I mean,
the one for it.
Does that, kind of taking out, one body out of that mix, is that gonna leave you with enough people for when people have vacation and all of that?
Yeah, because he'd be working then 40 hours a week instead of 20 to 30, so
Okay,
you'd be adding more potential time off, but you still have this solidarity of the full-time employee that typically full-time employees get the job a little bit more seriously.
yeah,
Not
that's
that he
true.
doesn't, but
Okay.
Joe?
I don't have any questions. I appreciate what you're saying. I'm kind of sour on hiring more or upgrading people right now, just with recent lack of development to support more staff, so to speak, and a few things. So I'm leaning towards no, nothing personal or nothing, I don't know Kyler at all. I'm trying to do the math in my head and think about the trade-off from not hiring somebody to then upgrading somebody to full-time, giving them benefits.
Ask the manager. He's probably done the math.
Mayor, Council,
I'm
sorry.
just
but-
thinking in my head, that's just my own,
Oh, I get it.
and I'm 1 out of 5.
Yeah, no, and this isn't an impact to our levy or our budget. The store is a standalone enterprise fund.
Okay,
So any of
That
this
helps,
cost would come directly out of Joe's budget and does not apply to any of our general levy.
that helps a lot.
Mm.
it's just me trying to manage my business better.
No, I appreciate that. That helps me a lot. I actually lean more towards yes then at that point, because that's my biggest thing is it's where are we at with all that, but I forget
I'm
that it's.
still trying to grow the city, not make it small. Make it
No, I
more
hear you.
expensive. I live here too.
I mean, I do think that because the guy needs benefits, I don't know. Reason to say yes, but like you say, the solid employee does what you say he needs, and if it's self-sustaining and self-supporting, then I don't really have an argument against it.
I know what you're saying, but somebody who needs health insurance and benefits, I can really see where that person's coming from. My husband and I have been self-employed for 25 years, and we have paid as much as $2,500 a month in health insurance for our family. No joke.
No, I.
And for 20 some years, we have done that. And, as y'all know, my husband was a part-time employee here. If they had offered health insurance to part-time employees, that would have been huge for us. And there's been many times where I thought, one of us is gonna have to go out and get, leave our business and go get a full-time job somewhere or a part-time job that does offer benefits. There are places that offer benefits to part-time employees. They're very few and far between, but I'm not gonna lie, there's been dozens of conversations in my home about that over the past 20 years. And for someone to say, I like it here, but I need health insurance. That is a reason to give him what he wants if it works within the budget and he's a good employee and you want him to stay. That really is because it is, it's a game changer for the person that needs the health insurance and the other benefits. So I would be for it. So just because I've been in that boat for a long time. So I can appreciate where he's coming from. on that.
When you said in your memo or whatever, roughly a $30,000 change to your budget. That's after taking away the part-time
I believe so, yeah.
hours?
We calculated the previous employee plus the current employee and the benefits that would be added.
Okay. I mean, I share some of the same concerns you had, Joe, when I read it. I mean, in general, I don't like adding full-time employees to anything in general, but I respect what you're doing. I know the job you're doing over there, so, and I get the situation you're talking about, so.
And I'm the younger of the 3 full-time employees. So I'm thinking about my longevity too. I'm not gonna, obviously, my dream is to run that store until I retire and then eventually take over Salt City, but.
You just answered my next question, so.
I'll know everybody.
He's not going anywhere. He'll not be allowed to leave the city.
That I could take under my wing and grow with me.
That's 16 years, right? You got 16 years left in you?
44.
I mean, I don't know, we'll just do a consensus. It's not really a vote again. Kevin, we'll just go down the line here. I don't know, Kevin.
I want to other question of the 30,000, that included the benefits portion of it? Okay, that sits better with me as well. So I'm all for it.
Oh, yes.
I mean, yes.
There you go.
Awesome.
For you.
Thank you, Joe.
Oh, I didn't think that one through.
I'll close the work session at 6:17 PM.